What was your, "I'm surrounded by idiots" moment? At a monthly meeting for all the department heads and supervisors, the GM went around the room and said, "Does anyone have any ideas how we can make a good impression on the new regional boss who would be visiting?" Nobody said a word. I figured, hell, I knew this person from working together at the previous property. I suggested something that he always harped on. 2 hours later I was called into my boss' office and told I could no longer attend these meetings. Later on that night a few of the upper management took me out for drinks and told me that it is expected to not offer any suggestions when the GM asks for suggestions. Put in my 2 weeks shortly after. It still pisses me off to this day. There is a girl in my class that is beyond helping at this point. Her best moments are, "I don't want to donate my eyes because I don't want people to see what I've seen. Gingers can't be American, yay, I got a D in French." Every day I go to work in my local leisure center. The heat and humidity are draining enough, but it really gets you when parents come in with 2 children that can't swim and leave one of them alone. Sir/Mom, you need to stay with both of your children, they can't swim. Oh okay. I'm sure they'll be fine. Child starts getting into difficulty without the parent seeing. Couple of young girls at the staff canteen said to the lady serving sausage bombs, "So what animal is used for sausages? Is there an animal called a sausage?" Serving lady, "I don't know." I didn't know who I hated or felt sorry for the most. Working in retail. I sell phones while I'm on commissions and sales are what pay my bills. 90% of my job is helping people do things with their phones that they could have figured out on their own with a Google search that would have taken 3 minutes, or next to no time at all if they would have just read their damn screen and did what it fucking said. No, I can't just change your Apple password. Yes, you have to call Samsung about your warranty. They really don't have a reason to speak to me. You aren't hearing your ringtone because you turned the volume all the way down. I wish I was exaggerating, but anyone else who works in a cell phone store can relate. I had a friend who never locked her door. She thought if they were locked and somebody out break in she couldn't escape. She lived on the first floor. In a grade 8 social studies class when I told my teacher the Great Wall of China could not be seen from space and she said, "When were you in space?" And everyone laughed at me. When I was in high school and someone asked me how you get green paint, I said you mix blue plus yellow and it makes green. Literally everyone argued with me, yelling, and called me stupid. I immediately lost all faith in humanity. Edit, to all the people commenting that green is a primary color, or talking about different things like pigment, how paints are made, etc. Like I said, this was about mixing paint in a high school art class. The situation was that we had the primary colors red, yellow and blue, nothing else. The assignment was to paint a specific full color photo in the book on a specific page by mixing the colors. That's why they asked how to get green paint. They had to mix it in order to do the assignment, and that's what we were referring to. You're all right, but that's all a completely different things than we were talking about in that situation. One coworker told her boss's boss to come down to her office if he wanted something from her. One coworker got a slice of bread jammed in the toaster and poked it with a fork. Our security guard accidentally shredded his paycheck. One coworker terminated her apartment lease and had a removal company standing in the hallway without having a new apartment lined up. My sister-in-law had no clue why her 50 kilograms of surplus weight would contribute to her breaking her ankle while walking down some stairs. All in one day. I took the next day off. I got hired on as an ambulance dispatcher for a company. Now I'm not an expert in medicine or anything, but I had some prior experience in related fields, so I felt pretty confident going into the job. It was a newer department that was created specifically to handle the expansion of an already well-established company. What I found out this meant, was that the entire department was hired either just before, or at the same time as me, which I was cool with, because I figured that everybody would have come from similar backgrounds. Nope. I found out that, for the most part, the people they hired were hired for their customer service experience. The management decided it would be easier to teach medical knowledge to those with good customer service skills, than it would be to hire people with medical knowledge and teach them good customer service. Unfortunately, while that sounds good on paper, what it meant was that 90% of the department knew nothing. They would fuck up diagnoses, leave out important equipment required for transport, and consistently dispatch units that couldn't actually handle patients' needs. It was a bleep show for a couple months before people from outside the department were brought in to train. They worked in the same building, so they just came to our floor. Eventually our entire just department got absorbed. I guess if I had to find an upside, it would be that, as one of only a few people who knew their stuff, it was easy to get a promotion. Our university has a student council of elected student members. Before going there, I believed those were the best and brightest of all students. Boy was I wrong, it was basically just a bleep show of people hurling insults along ideological lines, basically liberal versus socialist versus conservative versus green versus etc., and getting nothing done, despite having a budget of around $120K. When I was the only person in the class who knew that you do just turn a computer on and you need to turn the monitor on as well. When I was starting my second year in high school, in my geography class we were put into groups and asked to find certain countries. We were to find Brazil and the other 4 people in my group insisted that the entirety of Africa was Brazil. Answered a simple question in chemistry class, everyone including the teacher told me I was wrong. I knew I was right and looked it up. I was. Someone asked what the heck BMX even stands for. I tell them. Proceed to get called an idiot and laughed at because bicycles don't have a moto. Edit. Also in physics my teacher said you could theoretically drop a coin from a space station through a hole in the earth and then pick it up on the other side because they have the same period. I pointed out that the coin would need to lose all of its velocity otherwise it'll just orbit in weightlessness. Teacher couldn't comprehend this and was sure it would just drop to Earth. He believed astronauts had to be tethered when they left the station to avoid falling to Earth, rather than to stop them floating away. I joined a college group to help build a race car. During one of the first meetings when they were taking apart some components I used the word acrid to describe the smell of some liquid I had smelled in the shop. Now, I wasn't an engineering student, but everyone else in the shop was. They all discounted me because they thought I made up a word. It wasn't that they didn't know the word but refused to look it up and kept berating me for it. Their attitude towards the whole thing was toxic and I left the group shortly after that. True story. When I was going through college the first time during the '08 election, one of my classes allowed us to bring in news articles for discussion. One shithead brought in an Onion article, and seriously tried to pass it off as completely legitimate. I tried to call him out on his bullshit, but he insisted it was real. I want to believe he was trolling, but he was earnest. And, because life is awful, I'm pretty sure a lot of people believed it. So I work at a doctor's office. Our office is always getting in trouble because we have the lowest rates of physicals booked, despite being the biggest office within the system. We also have had a huge problem with follow-ups not being booked, etc. So one day, at a meeting with all of the front-end workers, the boss made a comment about how we need to be checking patients out properly. One person, who has been the 9 years sitting at checkout goes, how do you check out a patient? Now, this wasn't a clarification question such as what would you like us to do differently? Oh no. This woman meant exactly what she asked. She didn't know there was a checkout button, or how to schedule a follow-up. She's been the 9 years. She sits at checkout. I don't get it. Anyway, so the other checkout women during this conversation told her that there is a checkout button but doesn't know how to tell if they need a follow-up. She's worked here 2 years. When you click the button to check out it says, on a full separate page, that you have to acknowledge in order to complete the checkout process. Come back in 1 year for physical, needs follow-up 6 weeks, etc. I looked at my manager in complete agreeance and I banged my head on the table. I volunteer at a cat shelter. The amount of people, of every ages, that can't start a washing machine is incredible. Same thing with folding, I have to explain at least once every week the difference between the detergent and the fabric softener. I got into a debate of whether 10 or 100 was the average IQ. It was obviously 100. But I am pretty sure 10 was the correct answer for them. Got in a heated debate whether plants would exist without humans because we water them. Everyone thought plants would die without humans. Me and one other person were the only ones that thought otherwise. When kids in the Grundschule, elementary school in Germany, laughed at me when I told what I learned about the universe and Earth from science and educational shows. Like that we don't see how the far away stars and galaxies are at this moment but a very long time ago because light travels a far distance. And how the Earth originated. Update: I just remember the Earth thing was at elementary school but the laughter about the light was in one of the early years of the gymnasium, comparable to college preparatory school in the US, according to Wikipedia. When our family's car got hit by a drunk driver while it was parked in front of our house. I was the only one who heard the crash and saw the car drive away. My family not only called me abusive for trying to prevent them from banging on the next door neighbor's house and blame them for the accident but then also pretty denounced anything I said about what I saw after talking to the police. You know, the only damn witness to what happened. Reason they kept denouncing me was because I was protecting the illegals like I was one. I work in HR. So every goddamn day. Whether it is a location manager banging a coworker that is not his wife, the manager's wife also works at his location. Or, when I have to explain to people that make several million a year with hardly anything in their 401k that a 401k loan for a boat parking space is not a good idea. I have more. Ask any decent HR representative after a few drinks and they probably got some good stories to tell. I realized I was with the wrong crowd, including GF, when I registered for college at the age of 30 and all they could do was tell me I was wasting my time and laugh at me. I spent most of my 20s hooked on drugs after my mom died because I was so depressed so they didn't think I could accomplish anything. Today, I'm 32 with a 3.8 GPA transferring to a top 5 university across the country to go to mD school. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't accomplish things despite having a colorful past. When I was in elementary school, I did a presentation on Pocahontas and everyone in class insisted she wasn't a real person. I don't even think the teacher backed me up. Thanks for nothing, Mrs. Spell. Living in the 21st century where people still believe autism is caused by vaccines and a flat earth. When I go through my emails spam ordner. Who in the world would believe that some guy from Congo would want to give you $1 million in exchange for nothing? Was in 5th grade learning about space. The teacher said that the sun was at the center of the galaxy. Thinking she misspoke, I rose my hand and said that no, it wasn't the center of the galaxy, but rather our solar system. The teacher started arguing with me, so I argued back, saying that the center of the galaxy is a black hole. Finally another student piped up and said yes, the sun is at the center of the galaxy, and the galaxy is called the Milky Way. At that point I gave up. I moved away a few years later, but that student ended up graduating high school as valedictorian.